aggressive about or stopping the delayed maintenance issue that the school buildings have suffered under for quite some time, and we need to catch up on fixing that delayed maintenance. So that was a big topic that we've been bringing up quite a bit.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Public hearing on the recommended fiscal year 2017 to 2021 capital improvement program.
Yes, this is a public hearing on the recommended 2017 to 21 capital improvement program. It is available on the city's website, and there was a memorandum from the finance department about some changes. Is there anybody on the council that would like to address or ask questions of any of the issues? Yes, Councilor.
Before we have the workshop to discuss this in its entirety, I would like to ask that, for example, there's one here for Bellevue Avenue, the concrete work for $200,000. And before we do discuss this in a workshop, I would like city staff to look at the condition of Bellevue as it is, and we did a lot of work over there, and is at a point where we're throwing good money after bad, because it's in really bad shape. And so I think we really need to look at it from a big picture before we keep spending more and more money there. And the other items I will bring up later.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Is there any comments from the public? This is a public hearing.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to close the public hearing and adopt the fiscal year 2017 to 2021 capital improvement plan in concept.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
The consent calendar.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent calendar in its entirety.
Second.
There's a motion and second to approve the consent calendar in its entirety. Any questions? Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Application for a vittling license amendment, Newport Wine Cellar, LLC, DBA La Petite Gourmet, 13 Memorial Boulevard.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilor Leonard.
I spoke to the city solicitor in regard to this request for an amendment to the VIT license, and I think that it would really behoove us to ask for a continuance, because I know that the VIT license would have to be in the licensed premises, and I believe tables and chairs are not generally allowed in a Class A licensed premises. So I'm going to ask for a continuance at this time to give the city solicitor time to come back with his recommendations to us.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and second to continue the item until the solicitor gets back to us with the recommendation or answer the questions.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I guess I was just wondering if the city solicitor could comment on it now, this question that's being brought up.
He's still the acting, by the way.
Yes. Your name for the record, please.
Chris Bean, acting city solicitor. Is there a specific question you want me to address?
Well, the Kate's issue that you're bringing up, can you explain it a little more thoroughly and
Well,
let us know why it would be an issue?
Well, it's the issue was just brought to my attention. I believe this involves the VIT license, and it's asking for tables and chairs. That would be okay for the VIT license for that premises, but we have to be sure, because I believe we did have an issue or alleged issues about the operations. The operations of the victualling license business and the Class A liquor sales have to be separate. They should be separate. They should be separate entities. should be separate egress, ingress. I believe when you granted the Class A license, you had allowed, it was some common ingress and egress for employees only. I believe there was an issue that arose about sales of some of the prepared items on the VIT license side going into the licensed premises. I don't know if that is true or was it, whether it was established. The owner certainly didn't have a chance to contest that, but my only concern and what I would address to you is to make sure that these are separate businesses and they're not being operated together or in common with each other.
Okay. Are the business owners here? Maybe we should just ask them.
Answer any of these questions, or
Sure.
Yeah.
is that okay? So, the two businesses are being separate, they are being operated separately. There is a clear distinction between the two. The weekend that I opened the wine shop, I was operating under the assumption of a law that I guess was changed in 2002, and I apologized. I sold a couple of food items because the cheese shop wasn't open yet. Customers came in, asked me for a piece of cheese, and I said, okay, I'll go get you one next door. And I sold a piece of cheese. I'm sorry. And when it was brought to my attention that that law had changed, I mean, the law did read previously that pre-packed items were okay. I wasn't cutting anything to order. Everything was previously packaged. So, when it was brought to my attention by Turner Scott that that law had changed, I stopped. So, you guys do have the plan in front of you, and if you look at number 13, which is where the gourmet shop is operating, the tables and chairs that I've requested are on the front wall in the windows. There are 4 18-inch square bistro tables and 8 stools that would accompany them. There are no tables and chairs being requested for food service in the Class A Newport Wine Cellar side of things. I don't have any intention of serving food over there or selling food over there. I did shoot out an email to everyone to invite you if you'd like to come and see how it's set up. I'm happy for you to come and take a look. I'm glad to have the egress. It does make it easier for me to run my businesses, but it's very clear that it is for employees only. There's no access for customers.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor.
My dilemma is, and I speak right out loud, that basically someone could walk from one side to the other. And whether it's an employee or not an employee, I don't know how that could be really monitored. And I asked a question, can anyone recall us giving any other license that would be similar, meaning open kind of concept between two businesses? And that's one of the reasons I asked for a continuance, because no one could recall that. So it kind of opens a slippery slope because there's not a wall.
Well,
It's
there
basically.
is actually a wall. There is a solid wall that divides the two stores. There's also a completed counter that runs from a wall all the way around. Behind that counter is a door.
Correct.
Through that door is the sinks. Then there is another door. And on the other side of that door is an office. And on the edge of that office is a door before you then go into the wine store. So it's very clear that there's no way that a customer would walk through there. And the application tonight really is about the chairs. You know, the license was issued for the Class A license, and it says very clearly on there that that egress has to be maintained for employees only. and I have every intention of only using it for that.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilor.
It's my memory when we addressed this, I think at the last meeting, we talked about this passageway, and at the time, I thought everyone was in agreement that we knew it was two separate businesses acting independently, and that this would be only used by employees. So I guess I'm not understanding why this amendment to add the 4 tables for the gourmet would be a problem. What am I missing?
I don't know.
Maybe it's back to the solicitor.
Because I don't-
last
I have
time-
that same question.
Last time we
I'm-
met, it was fine, and that was only 2 weeks ago.
No, that's correct, and that's how it was granted. However, there was some indication, there seemed to be some evidence that was produced to us by customers that went in there that they weren't keeping the businesses separate. So I think that raised a little more heightened review of this application to make sure it is, that it's separate. Now, she indicates that she did that, or she did it to some degree, and she realized that she was wrong. You know, if that's the case, you're satisfied with that, then fine, but it's very important that these operate separately, and that's the law.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilor Letter.
If these were 2 separate spaces and weren't connected, and whether they're used that way or not is something that I personally can't say is going to happen 100% of the time, and I don't know if anyone else could. I would say, fine, good luck, I'm happy for you, and I hope they really operate well. I don't think it's such an inconvenience for somebody to walk on the street from one door to another. So I'm concerned because we haven't done it before, and there was an incident, and I'm uncomfortable with it. I just have to say that.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Councilor Flores.
I've exchanged correspondences with Maria, and she's been extremely transparent. I've been going to her store for years now, and I think she's being very genuine, and she's a smart business person, and I don't think she would compromise her business by trying to overlap the 2 businesses. So I see absolutely no issue with this whatsoever. I'd like to support it.
Thank you.
Yeah, at this point, too, I would not support a continuance. I guess I would say, obviously, you can't make those mistakes again.
I understand.
But
And I understand what's at risk, to speak honestly, Kate. If I do something wrong, that license is pretty valuable, and I understand that I would lose that license. Why would I want to do that? So I've made it abundantly clear to my staff, it absolutely cannot happen again. So I can ensure 100% of the time that it won't happen.
Madam Chair, I'm satisfied with the explanation. I will not support a
Counselor, would you like
continuance.
to withdraw your continuance?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and second to withdraw the continuance. I make a motion to approve this application. Make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, as a point of order, I'd like to, at this time, move item number 10, action item 5497, to the front of the Vittling license renewal for Duckett's Incorporated.
second.
There's a motion and second to move item number 10 under licenses and proceed.
Action number 5497.
We got to take a vote.
All in favor?
Oh. All in favor of moving the item?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Ayes have it. Sorry.
Okay, Madam Chair, Department of Public Utilities recommends approval of a 3-year agreement, including 2 additional 1-year options with Duckett's Incorporated of Portsmouth, Rhode Island, and Longdale Incorporated of Middletown, Rhode Island, to lease and operate existing Easton's Beach second-floor snack bar pavilion as well as operate up to 3 food carts or mobile retail food concessions operating on the boardwalk as described in RFP number 16-032. Madam Chair, this agreement will add $48,600 in revenue to the Easton's Beach revenue account for fiscal year 2017, $51,030 for fiscal year 2018, $53,851.50 for fiscal year 2019, totaling $153,481.50 over 3 years. I move approval of accompanying resolution.
Second. There's a motion and second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Application for a Vittling license renewal, Duckett's, Inc., DBA Colonial Restaurant.
Yes, this is a renewal for Duckett's at Colonial Restaurant, 175 Memorial Boulevard, Easton's Beach. I move approval.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Appointments to boards and commissions.
Yes, I'd like to make an appointment to the Cliffwalk Commission. I move to appoint Leslie Brookings-Elms.
Second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Canvassing Authority. There is one vacancy. I'd like to appoint Maxine Shavers.
Second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Cliffwalk Commission, we have a communication from Peter Generis, and I would also like to reappoint Mr. Generis to the Cliffwalk Commission. As indicated in his correspondence with the council, he offers a very unique relationship. He's been on it for a while. However, he's retired from DOT. He brings a lot of contracting skills and other skills that have benefited the Cliffwalk Commission. So I would like to reappoint Peter Generis to the commission. There's a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Resolution regarding surveillance cameras.
Mr. Flores.
This initiative is about giving law enforcement an additional tool to help fight crime. Police cameras have proven to be an effective tool, not just at solving crimes, but also as a deterrent as well. There have been some concerns that such a system will compromise citizens' Fourth Amendment rights. However, most of these attempts to challenge the constitutionality of these programs have gone unsuccessful. And you also have to remember that surveillance cameras are pretty much commonplace in every major U.S. city. And I think this would be a great program here in Newport to really give police and law enforcement that additional measure to help solve crimes. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor.
I just had a couple of comments about it. I don't have any issue with cameras in general, but I did want to flesh out a little bit more about the resolve and what we'd be really looking at. I was concerned about the concept of citywide. In my mind, if a program was a little bit more focused towards our bit larger business streets, Broadway, Thames Street, I think that would make more sense. And that being said, one thing I'm concerned about is the city has existing cameras that don't work, or one works out of the cameras that they have. So I guess what assurance is, if we try to move forward with this, that new cameras or a new program would have better success? If the cameras have been left and not maintained, it makes me think either they weren't that useful or you didn't have them in the right spots, or I guess I was wondering if somebody could address that a little bit to answer why our existing cameras have not been a priority to maintain.
Well, we did look at it. I had Bill Sent, who's our IT guy, look at some of what happened, and what he has come back with and told us is that a couple of reasons. Technology advanced and we didn't stay up with it. That's number one. Number two is that the company that we bought the cameras from simply went out of business, and we couldn't find any other entity or company to take over the review of the cameras or updating them or working on them and the like. The last correspondence we have on the cameras is 2011. In April of 2015, the police department did try to get the cameras reworking, but were unsuccessful. We have a proposal right now that we ferreted out to relook at the existing cameras, but really the bottom line recommendation is that the technology is much more advanced now, and that it looks like, at least from the recommendation we have, that we're advanced with the technology, and that it wouldn't behoove us to try to retrofit these cameras. There's some issues with antennas. We have broadband access, so to speak, now, as opposed to what they installed in, I think it was 2004, 2005, 2006 timeframes. Some of you, well, maybe two of you, perhaps, remember what went on in those days. The funds that the city used to install those cameras, purchase and install, were grant funds. I'm certainly hoping that the costs associated today, because of the advanced technology, are much lower. I don't necessarily can point to any particular source of funding right now for those, if we were to move forward with them. And indeed, I just wanted to emphasize that the use of cameras only in the business areas, the main thoroughfares. That's not, the intent is not to go outside of those thoroughfares. But it is interesting that we do have, 11 cameras out there right now, and only one works.
Right.
That kind of surprised me and caught me a little bit off guard when we went and got some information on it. And the only one that works, I think, is Broadway and Oak Street. All of the others are pretty well shot, at least from our initial review. So we're kind of, if you guys are so inclined to go in a direction of these, of looking at cameras anew, in my opinion, we start all over. We price a new system. We price a more modern technology of a system, and we'll report back to you, and even indeed look at the deployment of them.
I have a follow-up, too.
Sure.
Two things. You had talked about the funding. So if we narrowed the scope instead of citywide, but said business thoroughfares,
Yes.
to focus on that. And I would request that because, we just had that citizen survey.
Right.
And, their priorities that came back from the survey are education and infrastructure, road infrastructure. And this type of thing was fairly low down.
Mm-hmm.
So that then would make me consider cost, then how much would we really put into this? That being said, if you can develop a plan where these cameras have a dual purpose in terms of maybe creating a Wi-Fi network, which we talked about being like a walking trail almost,
Right.
that then could offer a secondary purpose, then the funding might make more justifiable sense.
Understand, and I would agree. I think we're on the, I've had this conversation with a few of you. By reintroducing this concept, we're on the cusp of not only this, but perhaps some bigger things. Interestingly enough, I can see it parlaying into the, maybe long in the future, but parlaying into the discussion we've had on streetlights and the purchase of streetlights. So, but right now, we'll focus on what we have now and come back to you and provide to you the recommendation and the source of funds that we will try to find to support a new program. And indeed, we could even talk about phasing in a program over those thoroughfares,
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor.
Only grant funds, though, that's what I'm looking at. I know that's, I can read your mind, Kate. Yeah.
Not really, part of it, though. In terms of what Naomi, Counselor Neville said, I totally agree. I think part of that same picture is not only of the funds, where the money would come from, but what are the costs to monitor, maintenance, all those are a big part of it. And personally, I think that I would probably support a trial run, but I'm really not sure in terms of maybe Broadway and Thames Street, because those seem to be the two streets that
That's primarily where they are now,
You know.
whether you know it or not.
yeah, they just don't, I know where they are.
We have you in 2006 on those cameras,
There's
Kate.
one on
Madam
Waits, and there
Chairman.
was one at the post office and blah, blah.
Okay. Counselor
I'd like
Flores.
to make one point. So while this may have scored very low in the survey didn't really isolate the Broadway community. And I can tell you that safety is a huge concern from the members of the Broadway business community. I've talked to numerous people, including the owners of the Fifth Element, Subway, Tavern, Caleb and Broad, and countless others. And I can tell you that there is a safety concern in that street. So I think that really warrants such a program, at least the investigation of the funding source, which is what we're doing here.
Yeah, and in my mind, you know, if we can come up with a successful program, trial program or what have you, phasing in or what have you, we phase it in from that area down. That's the way I'm at least thinking, just an easy way to think of it from the north to the south. But, or maybe mix them in, but I recognize that, yeah.
Any other comments?
Madam Chair, we do have a member of the public who...
Okay, yes. Yes, you wanted to speak, sir? And could you repeat your name and address for the record? Thank you.
Dougal Parkinson, 11 Park Street. I was a facilities manager up in Boston 10, 15 years ago, and dealt with cameras before, and they're quite expensive, so even just putting them in and just dealing with it going forward, as you can see with the dozen you have, only one works now, it's not necessarily the funding to put it in, but it's the follow-up money. It just, if you don't do it, it falls behind, and everybody needs a new phone every 3 years, so you can picture 3 years from now, all these cameras may be junk. I also wonder whether it's going to be a deterrent. I mean, I think of a lot of the crime that you read about in the papers that happens on Broadway or Thames is people getting drunk and coming down and don't actually live here. So I'm not really sure there's going to be that much of a deterrent if you're drunk and you don't live here and have no idea there's cameras there, let alone, you know. So I wonder if it's really worth the effort to go through this exercise, if it's going to cost money down the road and it's not really going to be a deterrent. And locals, are they just going to cause trouble? Oh, well, we know it's on Broadway, so let's whack them on Spring, you know. So I'm not really sure this is the right answer.
I'm just curious, is your concern a financial one, or is it privacy issue?
It goes over a couple different places. My wife's is more of a, she doesn't really want to have cameras on her. And mine is the practicality of the thing.
Do you realize that there's no expectation of privacy in a public space? These aren't going to be. These aren't going to be pointed at your house. These are going to be
I
in a
understand
public
that.
space, and there's no expectation of privacy whatsoever. in that
I
arena.
understand that.
Yeah, let me just make one other point, because I appreciate your comments, but, you know, if we had done what we were supposed to be doing over the years,
We would have had cameras
we would have
anyway.
already had them, because they've been in place since
Well,
5 or 6. And your point is well taken about the aspect of maintaining them and upgrading them and things like that, but the intent of the resolution is simply for my office, the people that work for me, including myself, to look at it, and we're happy to take on the responsibility of looking at it. I like the idea that Naomi brought up, and that is combining some things. We've talked about some things that go along with the cameras, and it's my problem, it's my work, and I'm more than happy to engage in the review and in the program and finding, since I'm the guy who's going to find the sources anyways, and presenting that to the council. And then, at that point, you may have another robust debate about whether you want them installed or not. But at least, the important thing is, there's no bad question, there's no bad inquiry in this regard. The important thing is that we get information, and that's all this is really designed to do.
And I want to make one more point. How they caught the Boston bomber? Surveillance cameras. Here's another thing. You know, it's funny. They did a story the other day on surveillance cameras here in Newport, and it started out as Big Brother watching you, right? And then they talked about the legality of it and, you know, so on. It was a 2-minute segment. They moved on. The very next story, it was about 2 kids, 18, 19 years old, who went into a parking lot, started smashing cars, and guess what? They were caught on surveillance. The very next story. How's that for irony? But I think there's a lot of value. I think if you look at the statistics, you look at the current studies, not the studies that were done in 2002, 2001, 2002, where the technology was still archaic, right? You talk about the more modern studies from John Jay University that were done in 2013, 2014. They all demonstrate a very strong validity that these are an effective crime-fighting tool and deterrent as well.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor?
I think just based on the discussion, though, I think we have been talking about a more focused intent, and if people would entertain just amending the resolution to be for the city administration to explore funding options for implementing a camera surveillance program focusing on the Broadway, Washington Square, Thames Street districts, period. I think that would to alleviate citywide issues, and that we're not talking about residential neighborhoods, we're focusing on business
John, would
I
you
would
like to?
second
Okay.
Sure.
There's an amendment to it to explicitly
Broadway, Washington Square, Thames
Broadway,
Street.
Washington Square, and Thames Street. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor?
I would support that amendment. I don't know if I would, I mean, I think information gathering is a good thing, but I really don't know if I would support, it would depend on what came back to us, because I'm not generally supportive of having cameras all over. So I would support the amendment as it's said.
Are there any other comments? You know, I'd just like to say, I think this would be a positive thing, particularly in our business districts. Whether it be somebody who is visiting or somebody who lives here, when there's property destruction or someone gets hurt, I think it's important. And, you know, to give this extra tool to law enforcement, I think is important in this day and age. To kind of say, oh, we're not even going to look at this, I think would be the wrong attitude to take. I think at least, you know, when we get the report back with the cost, the maintenance, and if it could be multifaceted, that could include some other things other than a camera, whether it's Wi-Fi or anything else, I think would be a good positive move for the city of Newport. So I will be supporting this resolution. Right, are we ready to vote?
May I have 10 seconds? Just 10 quick-
Certainly.
Thank you very much. I just was thinking that maybe you could do a private camera also incentive, so that any business owner, because I'm involved in private cameras as well, so if any business had their investment to help in the security of the city, they might have some type of incentive, whether it be like a pat on the back or $10 off their fee or something, I don't know, but an incentive, but then also to database who has cameras in our community.
Well, there used to be, I'll just tell you as an aside, the original system was
Thank you.
designed for the businesses to interface with the public ones and with the police department, but obviously they don't work, there's nothing to interface with. I'll mention one other thing. We got the fiber optics, so, I mean, I'm kind of interested in taking advantage of it somehow.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor.
One thing I didn't mention, but I will. Some companies, including the one that I work for real estate, have webcams. And the companies pay for the webcams. They pay for the installation. And basically, what you see on the webcam from those lenses gets on a website. So there's always a possibility, I think, of getting like sponsors, maybe even of the cameras.
Well, I think that's kind of, and it's a good idea, but I think
Yeah.
we need to have the information.
We've had
Yeah,
some
we
requests
definitely
from-
need the info.
We've had
but
some
it's
requests
another
from
option.
private sponsors for webcams, yeah. Private companies.
Okay, we ready to vote? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? 7-0. Thank you.
Resolution regarding the Broadway Ad Hoc Committee.
Councilor Segley.
Yes, I wrote this resolution mainly to put on the record that the city wants to ensure good communication among, with the Broadway merchants and the parties in the city and DOT and the contractor. I also want to make sure that we have transparency of the operations throughout the roadway and sidewalk expansion. One of the things I'd like to do, though, is I would like to amend this to say that the committee will comprise of one city council member. Certainly, council members can come to the meetings, but I think typically we have just one council member attend ad hoc committee meetings, so in an official capacity. So I would like to change that.
I second that as an amendment.
There's a motion second to change from 3 city council members to 1. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
That's all I really have to say about it.
Madam Chair?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
There's a motion second to approve as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Memorandum from the city manager regarding police body cameras.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to receive the memorandum from the city manager regarding police body cameras.
Second.
There's a motion second to receive. All in favor?
Madam Chair.
Oh,
are we
I'm
just
sorry.
receiving, or are
Any
we-
discussion?
I just briefly wanted to sort of ask a couple of questions about it in general, or just, it just builds on the topic that we already discussed about. I mean, there's a funding plan for the purchase and whatnot, but I don't know, before we approve it in this part of the CIP budget, I guess I'd like to have a better understanding of the other incidental costs in terms of how much it's going to cost us to store all the footage.
Yeah.
Not just the cost, but also what is the policy regarding, now that we have this footage, how long do we have to store it? What are our legal obligations
Sure, I can
regarding
provide
that?
all that. We're
It was legal obligations, funding regarding the whole big picture,
Yeah.
not just the purchase of cameras. And then also, a couple of people I've talked to kind of keep saying, well, the police, but they could turn the cameras off, go into a situation, you turn it off. But then I was questioning legally, won't that be a problem?
No, look at, in every, if I were to ask Gary Silva, the police chief, to produce the policy and procedures manual of the Newport Police Department that spells out all the issues that the rank and file, the policeman on the street, deals with, and how they're supposed to react to any number of issues, that manual is going to be this thick. Included in that manual, ultimately, will be an entire protocol issue as to how the cop on the street will react and what his standing order will be with regard to the use of these body cameras. I will point out to you that there is a bill in the, I guess this thing caught it on me. There is a bill in the General Assembly that's pending that was forwarded to me by the ACLU, just out of interest, that sets forth a dozen different protocols as to the use of body cameras. So we will take stuff like that, combine it with the experiences of other police departments that have tried and true tested programs, and put our own, have our own input in, our own separate input, and we will create, as Gary Silva has described, we're going to create a task force internal task force to develop all the protocol that's involved with these body cameras, to include a better analysis of the storage issues, the public records issue, the cost issues, and the like. The memorandum that I presented to you was simply an attitude that I see from my office and from the city administration, a positive benefit to the community with regard to body cameras. From there, there's a whole lot of things, as you're pointing out, and at the end of the memorandum, I have a whole list of things that still I would like and suggest we need to ferret out on an administrative level.
So in July, we vote on this, right, as the budget? Or
Right.
it's part of the CIP budget? So you have until July, I guess, to then work that detail out.
Well, I was,
I don't want to buy the cameras.
yeah, I guess I was.
Without knowing how we're going to use them.
Yeah, I was approaching it a little differently, but that's fine. I don't have a problem ferreting out all those issues right now. I was kind of waiting for the money, but that's fine. I'll wait till July. We will have in place, by the time you vote on the budget, all those protocols with regard to the use of these cameras.
Madam Chair?
And the
We've
maintenance,
collected the
so-
information.
And the maintenance, so if they
Yeah,
stop
of course,
working,
of
we're gonna
course, right,
come back.
right, of course.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor Leonard.
I personally am not comfortable with this. We're not Chicago, we're not Los Angeles, we're not New York that are mentioned. We're also not Post Falls, Idaho. And I look at it, the pilot program, Boston's going to purchase 50 for a pilot program. And when I look at the rest of this, it says, first of all, we also don't have any funding. I don't think, and I know I hear, oh, we're not a safe community and blah, 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 but I personally don't think that we have huge problems with our police force making arrests, and I really get kind of concerned myself with people walking around with cameras, and I don't know how they're always used.
Well, one observation I'm going to make is I'm not asking you for anything this evening from an administrative standpoint. This memorandum, when I drafted it back in, it looks like January, I should have put it on the docket. It just, when it was an oversight on my part, I just passed it out to all of you and figured you'd figure it out on your own during the course of matters. So that was a mistake on my part. However, I mean, the rubber hits, I suppose, the camera takes the picture at budget time, and if you don't pass the funding for it, then the program doesn't go forward. However, apropos to what Councilor Neville is saying, we will develop the criteria, and at the appropriate time, budget time, or when we vet the capital improvement program a bit more, that's when you guys have to really, I'm going to ask you guys to make a decision at that time. And the program either goes forward or it doesn't. I see value in the program. I spent a lot of time with a lot of resources on the program. Obviously, one of the lines in my memorandum was, at first I wasn't a big fan, but after doing my own due diligence, speaking with various enforcement entities, viewing other materials on it, I changed my mind. And all that memorandum is, Kate, is a recommendation to the council that perhaps we can move forward with them. But again, your participation is funding. Without funding, nothing goes forward.
And we decide that in July.
Yes, yes.
You know, I have to kind of laugh about cameras. Everybody's phone has a camera, for God's sake. You can't walk down the street without somebody putting their camera phone up for some reason. It is on a limited basis. It is a pilot program, correct? What we're
That's
referring to?
the phrase I'm using, but
Okay.
when I spoke to the Boston Police Commissioner's office, that many months ago, I said, what's up with this pilot program? I said, what are you going to do with the cameras if you conclude that the pilot program doesn't work? Well, the response was, well, it's going to work. And so it's not an option just to take the cameras off and throw them away. Look, I can respectfully, we can have a good discussion on whether we're Chicago or Los Angeles. We're not. I agree with Kate. But it's a tool. It's simply a tool. It's a technological tool. And, you know, part of me, I see the utility of it in terms of law enforcement. I also like the idea that we're taking a small step forward with technology. Just like we took a small step forward with our See Click Fix app, just like we're taking another step forward and looking at updating our surveillance cameras, if you will, and maybe looking at them with the capabilities that they have Wi-Fi hotspots. To me, it just means that we're just moving forward towards becoming a digital city. That's at least the way I'm thinking.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions? Okay. You can make a motion
Yep.
to receive.
Motion and second to receive, yes.
Okay, there's a motion and second to receive the information from the city manager. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Memorandum from the city manager regarding city property leases.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to receive.
Second.
There's a motion and second to receive. Discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilor Leonard.
I asked that this be looked at before, and so I'm glad that this came back to us. But I also am going to reiterate that after looking at this and looking at the leases, that I think now that we're working on the comprehensive land use plan update, that it's important that we analyze what the residents of Newport want to fund and for what programs and what people and so forth. For example, the Newport Harbor Center, our annual fee, lease is $52,632, and the new roof costs $150,000 that we have to put. This is after hundreds of thousands before that. The Brick Market building is leased out for $1 a year. And then that has costs associated. It also has some benefits. It's not up to me to say, but I think it's up to the people of Newport who support these buildings to have a say in what they want. For example, the Edward King House is $1 a year lease for a very good reason, and the anticipated improvements needed are $4 million. When we look at all of the city-owned facilities, and we have abandoned schools and so forth, I think that now is a good time with the comprehensive land use plan workshops and discussions for people to weigh in on what they think is important in our community and what services and what things they're willing to support. So I bring that up because these leases, we have the Gateway lease that goes into a restricted account for $40,000 a year, and so forth. So I just think that it's a good time to be open, transparent, and get input from the public as to what we all want to fund in the coming years.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion to receive?
Motion to receive.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Action number 5498.
Madam Chair, Department of Finance Purchasing Division recommends the participation in the NASPO Value Point Cooperative Purchasing Organization and the Massachusetts Higher Education Consortium for Cooperative Purchasing Opportunities and Savings. There is no fiscal impact. I move approval of accompanying resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Action number 5499.
Madam Chair, City of Newport Fire Department recommends retaining the services of Cyber Communications Solutions Incorporated of Warwick, Rhode Island, to remove the existing R25 radio communications tower located at Station 5 and to replace the structure with a new R45 40-foot bracketed tower and to replace the necessary cabling for the sum of $16,904. The amount is currently budgeted. I move approval of the company resolution.
Second.
There's a motion, second, discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Counselor
I
Leonard.
would like to thank the fire chief because I sent emails and he responded very quickly. Actually, he does middle-of-the-night emails like I do. But I want the neighbors to know that if they see this going up, that it's the same size as what's been there, so we don't have any questions and comments like the tower, the cell tower that went up at Rogers. So same height, same everything. So we're not asking for anything different. We're just asking to get a higher grade to this disintegrating tower so that we all have communication much easier. So if you see something going on, it's the same height and the same of what's there. So I move that we approve this.
Second.
There's a motion, second to approve. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn as council and convene as Board of License Commissioners.
Second.
There's a motion and second to convene as Board of License Commissioners. Okay, consent calendar.
Take a vote.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the consent calendar in its entirety.
Second.
There's a motion and second to approve the consent calendar in its entirety. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn as Board of License Commissioners and convene in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4246-1 as amended and 4246-5, purposes for which meetings may be closed, to discuss in executive session issues related to the collective bargaining of Rhode Island Council 94